Hello, 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 and welcome, welcome. This is the strange part of the show. I was realizing that this is the part that when we go out live, there's hardly anyone here because not many people join after the show has started. So there's hardly any actual humans here right now. But after the show, this is the bit that everyone watches because they sort of want to see what the show's like. So there's thousands, millions of people watching this in the future. Well, 12 or so. It's been a crazy week this week. I have been filming courses. I've got a couple of LinkedIn learning courses that I filmed this week. I'm in the process of editing them right now, which is a bit weird when you're editing yourself. That you need to have some kind of psychological detachment. So I'm probably going to need some serious therapy after this. But I'm excited about today's show. I want you folks to be live in the comments, saying hello, letting me know what's going on, letting me know where you're joining from, letting us know your questions. Want to know what it is that you want to know about leadership and AI and the sort of the humanity that's required for good leadership with AI. So let us know in the comments as you're joining. And yeah, let's I'm excited because we have got Andrew Grill, author of this lovely book here that Andrew gave me a few weeks ago. And the thing is that Andrew and I have known about each other for years. We speak at the same kinds of events. We know a lot of the same people. We mix in the same groups, but we only met for the first time a few weeks ago when we were speaking at an event in London at Elite Business Live in London. And yeah, immediately we were like, he's my kind of guy. So, so let me, without any further ado, actually a little bit of ado, because people are coming in now. Yay! Here we go. Who have we got here? We've got Camilla in Toronto. We've got Todd Phillips. Hey, Todd, down in Florida. I've got Oren in Cleveland. Demetrius in Detroit, Heidi, hello Heidi, Vancouver, Courtney in Knoxville, Bob Love from Glasgow, hello Bob, you just tuned in to hear a friendly accent there, didn't you? Gary from New York City, Kurt from Ottawa, oh this is lovely, thank you all for joining, Jennifer in Maine, Kurt in Orlando, my goodness, this is fantastic. Thank you all so much. Please ask your questions as you go. I'll be looking at the chat. And in the meantime, let me hand over to the AI to sarcastically introduce our today's wonderful guest, Andrew Grill.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome a man who has spent 30 years telling people to get digital, which I should clarify is not a rash. Andrew Grill is a practical futurist, not a theoretical futurist. Those ones are completely useless. Andrew is actionable. So actionable, in fact, that he once keynoted a conference in his sleep and got a standing ovation. He's a former IBM Global Managing Partner, holds an engineering master's and an MBA, and personally launched Australia's biggest property website. So if you've ever tried to buy a house in Sydney, that's on him. He's also in the Global Guru Top 30 Futurists list, which is a real thing, apparently. We assume he's here today because a man who's been online since 1983 has thoughts about whether AI is making us smarter or just more confidently wrong. Andrew, you have the floor. Keep it actionable.
Wonderful. Hello, Andrew. So good to have
Hi,
you
Dave.
here. Thank you.
Did you have the sarcasm slider all the way up with that AI voice?
Yeah, it's do you know that's the most sarcastic and eye-rolling it sounded so far, and it really I don't know what they've done. They've improved the voice to turn it into a complete a-hole. So so that's what you got today. Now, you said there that you've been online since about 1983. That was in the days when the internet sounded like dolphins fighting.
Yeah, dial-up tone. You know what? When I do my talks, I actually play it, and the room takes a couple of seconds and they go, oh, I remember that. And that's
Oh, yeah.
300 bits per second, not megabits, kilobits, 300 bits per second.
And then there would be that part where you're going, oh, could you put the phone down? I'm on the internet.
Well, funny you say that, because Dad, he just turned 90 in January. They had to get a second phone line because I was always dialed up, and that would happen so often. They said, we're getting a second phone line because you're always on this dial-up thing.
And it was also the days, round about that 1983, was that when War Games came out, I think? And that was like the film of the time about the internet.
Yeah, you put your modem down in the acoustic coupler, and you'd then go and hack into the defense system. But I wasn't hacking into things. I was dialing up a thing called the Angle Park Computing Center bulletin board, and I would leave messages, and my friends would then ring up hours later, and they'd reply. So I'd be ringing up all the time to see if people had left me messages.
Wow, you that was basically like the early version of Facebook in many ways. On the other hand, I actually was a hacker. So I hacked into the school's computer system, and I for a joke hacked into the library system that they had spent loads of money getting this new library system in, with all the books catalogued. And all I did was I went in and I changed the font size so that you could only get one letter on a screen at a time. And they got really quite upset about it. And I said, all right, let me fix it. And they said, we're not going to let you anywhere near it. And they spent a whole load of money getting the tech folk in fixing it. It's just like, I was going to fix it. It was a joke. But there we go.
You and I have so much in common. That happened to me too. My school in 1985, when I was in the final year, they just got a computer room full of BBC Micros.
Yeah.
And the computing master, he had put the admin password, Kate, his wife's name, on the whiteboard. So I was in there. I thought, why don't I try to get admin access? And I got in there and changed the password. I got in trouble. I got a detention. And rather than being rewarded for that, for exposing a security issue, I got in trouble.
Yep, me too. There we go. So folks, you have got a couple of criminals right here today. Right. So when we were at Elite Business Live, which was an interesting event where we basically had like seven of us on the panel and like 4 minutes to speak kind of thing. Yeah. We both kind of like talked about the same thing, and we were talking about how AI is a leadership problem, a human problem, rather than a tech problem. But we probably come at that from slightly different ways. Could you explain your take on this?
Yeah. So you waved my book up before. I've got one too. I haven't signed this one. I should sign it myself.
Sign it to yourself.
The reason I use the phrase digitally curious, first of all, it's technology agnostic. It can refer to AI, it can refer to dial-up, mobile, quantum, but it's a mindset. And so I generally get in to talk to people who haven't got it figured out yet. Google and Apple aren't going to have me in to talk about AI, but I generally get hired in where the company is going, we're a bunch of lawyers, we're having a partners conference, we're not sure what to do. But we've got Copilot, so we're doing AI. And I kind of face palm and I go, okay, do we even have the paid version? Oh, no, we're just using it for scanning documents. And it's like, okay. In fact, I had a call yesterday with a large consulting company who have invested heavily in AI, and I'm keynoting their conference. And they said, oh, the partners, they wouldn't have touched the tools. And I said, this is the wrong approach. Yeah. Everyone has to be digitally curious. I was thinking about this before I came on air today, that years ago, I had a boss who would dictate her emails to her personal assistant. The PA would type them up, send them off. The response would come back, and then she would read them out. That means she's never actually exercised the muscle where she's got to work out how the email program works, all those sorts of things. So if you're reading and hearing about AI and then you aren't actually using it in anger, you're never going to have that what I call aha moment where you go, oh, that's what it can do. And that just changes everything. So when you say it's a leadership problem, I get called in to talk to boards, board chairs, CEOs, the C-suite. They say, oh, we're too busy to play with this. And I sit them down, and in 15 minutes, they become almost, it's evangelistic. Oh my goodness, I didn't know I could do that. What can I do this? And they lean forward, they become digitally curious, and that's when the magic happens.
Yeah, and it's funny, we're both coming at the human problem of boards, but from slightly different directions. And I come at it from like a psychological point of view. So I bring in a lot of sort of neuroscience and behavioral psychology and even like evolutionary psychology about how it is that humans work, and the fact that, you know, our brains actually haven't structurally changed in 40,000 years. And we are operating with the same clock speed, the same memory capacity, and the same processing power as like so many thousand years before we even invented farming or cities or anything like that. So the same stuff from when we were running from the beasts on the plains. And that's how we are built. And with the speed, and this is one of the things that a lot of leadership people are seeing, is they're thinking it's all about productivity and speed, and humans can't get any faster. And what happens is, as the speed goes up, it means that the thinking power goes down, because we've reached capacity on thinking power. And that's one of the, I look at it very much from that sort of very squidgy processor sort of side of things. Are there things that you're seeing that is like a disconnection between leadership and the workforce?
Yeah, because everyone's using AI, or they're playing with it. It's what we call shadow AI. So often I go into an organization, sometimes they say, we've locked everything down. You can't use any tools whatsoever. Humans are ingenious things. They'll go and find a way around that. I saw an article yesterday where they have the 2 laptop problem, where you've got one laptop open using the company tools, and you can't do everything you need. So your other laptop, your personal laptop's also open, and you're kind of doing a bit of that stuff there because you're using Claude or the paid version of GPT, and it's working for you in a better way. So unless, and this is why when I get a room full of partners or a room full of lawyers, and I just think, okay, I have an obligation to basically bring them all up to speed so they feel comfortable. Part of it is, there is so much hype and noise about AI. I've never seen a technology hyped up as much as it is. I can't keep up with what's out there on LinkedIn, and you're probably the same. So if I can't keep up, I'm putting myself in the shoes of someone who is already frazzled, already a leader, already doing all these things in their business. And now on top of that, you've got to learn a new language, this language of prompting and what AI means. So that's why I try and make it accessible, and the book certainly helps with that, to get them into the room, get them onto the keyboard, try something different. I often get asked on the BBC, and they like this phrase I'm about to use. Next time you do a prompt, add to that prompt and justify your answer. Now, what will that do? 2 things. First of all, it'll make the AI work a bit harder. Secondly, it'll invoke your critical thinking, because the AI will actually hopefully show you how it arrived at that. It will justify what it did, and it may show you some sources of where it found that from. Then back to your leadership worker human problem. Are you going to deploy your critical thinking to challenge what you've been told from the AI? And I think the more the AI is open to show how it's, showing it's working, you then go, well, that's how I would have approached that. So yes, you're right. AI does things at speed and scale. Actually, AI demands better humans, because you've got this information at the fingertips. Your brain doesn't work any faster. You've got to then invoke all of your experience, all of your critical thinking to say, does that look right?
Yeah. Yeah, that's it. I mean, it's critical thinking is one of these things that, it's a term, it's a phrase that's been thrown around a lot, I think, over the last 15 years or so. And I think it's one of these things that's so sadly missing from so many people and from so many organizations. And I think that the AI is turning it into a skill that is absolutely necessary. So like one of the courses that I was doing this week is on truth proofing. So how can we understand whether an AI has hallucinated or confabulated? How do we check that stuff? Because one of the things that I'm finding is that these skills are not being taught. And we're starting to see statistics come back saying that 80% of people, 80% do not check their AI response for fact checking, for truth. And that is a huge problem, because as people are thinking that the models are getting more powerful, which they are, capability is not the same as truth. And the models are actually becoming less accurate as they become more capable. So we're seeing an increasing number of hallucinations, whereas most people believe that hallucinations are going down. Do you think that there's skills that we need to be teaching within organizations to protect the organization and to protect the people working within it that are just being ignored at the moment? What do you think the most important skills are that leadership should be looking at?
So a couple of thoughts on that. I've wondered whether in an organization where you've got some control over the devices you give people, they're doing a prompt, they ask a question, and then the AI, and it's easy to program this, comes back and says, okay, I want you to prove that you've done some thinking on this. I've given you the answer and it's 7. Do you know the answer really is 7? And I won't let you actually enter any more prompts. I won't let you go any further unless you've proven to me, and maybe it's a random spot check that they're doing their critical thinking, that you've actually thought about this, and maybe a bit like when you get those phishing emails from the IT department to trick you into clicking on it to say, haha, we got you. Maybe AI actually has to do some spot checks to go, I actually gave you a deliberately wrong answer and you're not using your thought processes.
Yeah.
The other way to answer it, I did a LinkedIn post, I think it was last Monday, week before, because I saw this article that was referenced by a guy called Tim Cook, who's actually an elementary teacher in Amman, Jordan. I had him on my podcast. We haven't gone live with it yet, but I recorded an episode with him on Monday, which was fascinating. He started some research from Psychology Today where they've looked at cognitive decline. Over 45 years of age, if you rely more on AI, you're more likely to not actually have some cognitive decline. But before 45, if you're basically doing something and then allowing the AI to give the answer and you've never done it before, you're never going to build up that skill. So my thinking has been for a while, maybe we need to teach this more in schools. But at the moment, unless the education system changes dramatically, they're not going to magically add a critical thinking course. So I think that the critical thinking path starts at home. And I'll give you an example. So in the book, chapter 1, it explains why I'm digitally curious. And it gave you an example of when I was doing some electrical experiments with my dad. We had a battery and 3 lamps. And if you wired the lamps and the battery in parallel, the lamps glowed quite brightly. If you wired the lamps in series, one after the other, they glowed dimly. And I had a little logbook, and I wish I could still find this. It's an A2 logbook. A5 logbook where I had all the experiments in there. And I go to my father, why is that? He went, no, Andrew, why do you think that is? And we worked it out that if you have it in series, the current has to go through each lamp. And so it actually, there's a resistive current, it resists the current, so it glows dimly. So I had to think about it. So at age 6, I was using critical thinking because my father had forced me to be a critical thinker. So I think actually, and my discussion with Tim backed this up, that it actually starts at home where parents should be saying, can you think about that? Because we can't rely on the fact that the school or the university system will teach critical thinking. So when we get these new graduates out and there aren't all these AI tools, they're just going to blindly believe it. So two layers there. One is start critical thinking early at home. And if anyone listening and watching is a parent, are you being critical thinkers for your kids? And secondly, do we need to build in some random spot checks into AI to say, are you really thinking about this problem? Because I've just given you the wrong answer.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know, that article that Tim, who, you know, he keeps getting muddled up as the leader of Apple as a teacher.
He does,
sure.
yeah.
That article is actually, I had today in my newsletter that went out. In fact, there we go. In the comments, I'm putting my newsletter link there for anyone that's not subscribing to my newsletter. I wonder if that'll actually work. There we go. It's gone on YouTube. It's not gone on LinkedIn. That's a bit of a pain. But yeah, it's a really interesting study. The fact that older people, and part of one of the things that comes into this is what we call the curse of knowledge. Yeah. And the curse of knowledge looks at how people who have got experience that they have earned over time, they can't imagine what it's like not to know that. So they assume that everyone else knows that when they don't. It's stuff that they've learned over time. So the curse of knowledge means that it creates a separation of understanding between leaders and those who are below them. And one of the things is that we when we've built the knowledge and we've built the skills, then for people in leadership, they think, well, AI just helps me do that a little bit faster. I still have the skills if I need to, but it'll help me do that a little bit faster. Not understanding that for people who are lower down in the organization, they haven't built those skills yet. And what AI does is prevents them from learning those skills and becomes a crutch that cripples them and makes it harder for them to learn things as they progress. And one of the things that I've talked about a lot to my clients is that our role for people who are junior in our organization is to build the neural material in their heads. It's not just to show them how to use an AI tool, because if we kick away that AI crutch and people can't do it, you have failed in an organization. And are you seeing that?
Not enough people are talking about this. The fact that you and I are talking about it, we've seen the same article. This is important. Forget the technology. AI is here. It's going to fundamentally change the way work gets done. But as you and I I'm going back to first principles. What is it about the human that changes? And when I read this article and it was that 45 number, it made sense because you and I have done this stuff before. If you took AI away, we'd still be able to do it. We'd now do it more slowly. If you've never done it before, how can you possibly learn if you're relying on AI to tell you the answer?
Yeah, I mean, it's one of the things that really worries me. And it worries me about school kids. It worries me about teenagers, particularly in teenage years is when we have the major neural pruning event, which means that all the stuff that's in your brain that hasn't been used, it basically dissolves because your brain is trying to become more efficient. And when it does that, if you've not exercised, if you've not built the circuits, if you've not exercised your brain and built up those mental muscles, it dissolves. And it makes it harder for you to learn that in the future because you no longer have the mental equipment for the wiring to happen. So from a neurological point of view, there are some significant risks for school children using AI tools. And it's why I'm not seeing schools and education institutions looking at this properly. And last year, I put forward a proposal for educational institutions. I got a flood of brilliant responses from professors and lecturers because I put forward this proposal, which is that the job of educators is to build this neural wiring. And I talked about the brains-on approach and how actually for decades, we've been moving towards a brains-off approach of the way that we assess skills within educational institutions. And one of the things that we're about to release at the Academy is something that's called AssessWise. And it's a tool of 40 different forms of assessment that are resistant to AI. So you can't use AI to cheat. And it's something that, because I'm so passionate about this, it's something that we're trying to give back to educators to get them to understand that they need to change the way they're teaching, they need to change the way they're assessing, or they're really doing a disservice. I mean, we've gone off on a tangent here, but I think
I agree with you. And the more we bang on about it, I'll give you another example. So I help a charity called Speakers for Schools. It was set up in the UK by Richard Peston, who's the ITV journalist, about 10 years ago. And I go into schools that wouldn't normally get to have a keynote speaker like you and I give them some of my wisdom. And I did that, this is a few years ago, to some sixth formers. And the teacher at the time said, "Oh, that was great. Can you come back next month for an inset day where we close the school down for a day? All the teachers have a development day." I was really tough on them. Exactly what you said almost. I said, you need to invest in the critical thinking. You need some on-the-job life skills. So for example, have a mock meeting where a student is told no. Have a mock meeting where they've got to think about it and explain their answers. I love doing keynotes. In fact, I did one last year to a bunch of journalists where there was no prepared keynote. It was just Q&A. So I stood there. There was nothing. I had no notes, no idea what people were going to ask me. I said, "Ask me anything." And it did a couple of things. It certainly made me work for my money, but it allowed me to go, do I know all the stuff? And what are the things that people want to know? And can I address that? So that for me is really important. But I want to throw a question back to you. My view, yes, schools are important, but that's going to be procedural change and almost legislation. My idea of starting at the family unit, again, you can't legislate that. Is that a dumb idea, or are we onto something here?
No, it's definitely an important thing. It's definitely necessary. And when I wrote a book. Have I got a copy of the book somewhere? I wrote a book last year for kids, which is about how to use AI in a way that enhances your education rather than as a cheat machine. But part of the thing about the book is it's aimed at parents, and the idea is that parents go through this with their kids, and I think it's absolutely vital that parents should be more involved, but just in general in their education. The one concern that I have about it is a bit like what's happened with recycling, is that by putting the problem in the hands of the end users, you've actually not addressed the real problem. So the problem with recycling, it shouldn't be with the consumers. It should be the problem should be addressed much further up the line with the people who produce the frickin' packaging in the first place.
True. Yeah.
So with this, I think that yes, parents should definitely be involved in this, but we should also be further up the line looking at this. And there are responsibilities that the AI companies have, and there's responsibilities that the government has, and there's responsibility that the schools have. The more parents are involved, we end up with a much wider audience, much less control, and it's to me it feels as if it's too far down the line.
I don't say we should do that alone. It should start with that, and everyone has a part to play. Every AI tool you look at the bottom, it says AI may make mistakes. I think it almost needs to be a more overt health warning of every 20th query. I want you to check that, and if you don't know how to check that, I'm going to run you through Dave's course to explain how to critically think and evaluate what you've just got out of the tool. Yeah,
I mean that's great. The more people that do my course, the better. That's fantastic. Thank you, Andrew. Now, there's stuff here that when you wrote Digitally Curious, this fantastic book available in all good internets, around curiosity and critical thinking as core skills. And I made, in my yellow book here, I made a sort of similar case in 2019. And I kind of mentioned AI. When I wrote this in 2018, published in 2019, I wrote about the impact of AI on creativity. And then I had to rewrite it last year, had to rewrite a chapter to bring it up to date because it's happened now. But, we were sort of preaching about a lot of the same stuff, really, in terms of sort of activating brains and using our intelligence. With AI doing the grunt work, are you seeing this as something that should be more formalized? Because I think a lot of the time, critical thinking, it's almost seen as common sense. He just doesn't have any common sense. He's no good at critical thinking. It's kind of that slightly fluffy thing. Do we need to formalize it? Do we need to have this as like a subject at school, as something that you get a certificate in it?
Well, I think we probably do, but I think before that, and you mentioned the word curiosity, what is curiosity? It's a gap between information and knowledge. And so where there's a gap there, you and I think are pretty curious people. Why does that work? I mean, I'm very lucky. I studied as an engineer, and engineers learn from things called first principles. So if something's not working, you then go back to the root cause. Is it plugged in? You know that joke on the IT crowd where they say, have you tried turning it back on and off again?
Yeah.
You know why that works is because when you turn it off, it clears all the registers and it resets all the capacitors. And so when you run it up again, if there was something that was stuck, it gets unstuck. So that's the first principles. Have you tried turning it on and off again? So I think the first thing is curiosity. If you're curious, so let's reverse that. If you're not curious, you probably aren't curious enough to be a critical thinker because you accept the answer, you go, yeah, whatever. But you and I go, oh, okay, if I'm going to present that to a client, how do I back that up? I'm able to look at the sources of information. Am I able to do my own scratch pad? Let me give you an example. I gave this yesterday. When I was doing my engineering degree, I had a lecturer called Gunnar Kreeves. And he was a tough old thing. We had to do pre-work. So before we went in and did an experiment and wired something up and got the answer of 7 volts, he said you have to do the pre-work. You have to do the long form understanding. This was before, AI, so we had to do it by hand, so that we knew going into the laboratory what the answer should be. And so when you do the experiment and you get 7 volts, it works. If you got 4 volts, you know it's wrong. At the time, we thought, this guy's nuts. It's so unfair for him to force us to do pre-work. 20 years later, I was invited back to the institution to give an address to the students, and standing at the back of the room was Gunnar. And I said, Gunnar, thank you. You made us think critically. You made us understand whether what we were seeing was right or wrong. So I've been trained to do that. I'm very lucky because in my whole life, whether it be business or personal, when I have a problem, I think deeply on it and I ask other people. I use AI, I do my own research. So I think part of it is curiosity will then lead into critical thinking. I think critical thinking can be taught, but can it be tested? Just because okay, I've got to check my work, but I'm in a hurry. I don't want to check. I'll just believe it. I think it's, again, a mindset. And I think some people get it. I live in the UK and I've lived here for 20 years and 63 million people. So you have the broad spectrum of society. There are some people that will never critically think. They do things that are so silly. You think, why would they do that? Forcing them to be critical thinkers is probably the wrong thing to do. However, let's turn it around. Yeah. If you're listening to this and want to be ambitious, you have to be curious and you have to be a critical thinker. As I said before, AI will actually demand better people. And if you want to get ahead in your career and you're not critically thinking and you're not skilling up to do that, then you're missing out.
Yeah, do you know, it's funny that what you're saying kind of fits in with this sort of brains-on approach that I talked about for education. That what happens is when you teach people what to think rather than how to think, you're teaching a brains-off approach to life. And that's where education is at the moment, which is this sort of brains-off approach. And then when that goes into organizations and you're taught this is the way we do things, this is our process, then there's a lot of organizations who've been hiring expensive graduate talent and then teaching them to switch their brains off and just do it the way we do it around here. That to me makes no sense. It's the brains on approach where people are able to question, when they're able to find their own route. All this stuff that you sort of talked about, your father making you asking you questions, so you had to think about why things worked. Your Gunnar making you do your pre-work. All of that stuff is about switching our brains on. And I think that is one of the issues that we're finding is that AI does not work well with the traditional brains-off approach to education or the workplace.
Well, let's take the workplace. So you and I probably agree, I'm sure we agreed on stage at Business Live, that we need to fundamentally reimagine how work gets done. And your point was there, we hire these graduates, we tell them this is the way it's always been done, this is the way you're doing it, don't deviate, don't think for yourself. So AI comes along and does things at speed and scale and gives you the answer much quicker, maybe even more effectively. And we have to use the old processes. So what we're seeing is people are going, oh, we'll just AI the process. So we're putting a very intelligent tool on top of an existing broken process. A lot of firms, a lot of people listening to this have probably been through years of digital transformation, especially around COVID. We had to take things online, so we had to take the paper forms and make it accessible through a web form. Okay, we've done that. Oh, now you're telling me we've got to do it again with AI? No, it's beyond a transformation from paper form into online. Do you even need the paper form? We need to fundamentally reimagine how we get work done. So think of a simple exercise. Take 20 minutes tomorrow. Sit down and evaluate your job. What are the tasks that you have to do? What are the tasks you like doing? What are the tasks you don't like doing but have to do? And what are the tasks you could automate? And think of your job as a stack of tasks, a whole lot of cards. Look at what you could actually automate and take that off the table. Look at the stuff that you really love doing and would like to keep doing and needs the human touch, and you keep that. So the phrase I coined was focus on what you love and automate the rest. But you really need to audit what you're doing. Now, that's okay for your own job, but then you hit the corporate entity and they go, no, Andrew, we've always done it this way. So when I go into the C-suite, I give them a bit of AI and I go, okay, here's the hard truth. You're going to have to fundamentally change how you get work done. And this is hard. and it's expensive, but AI isn't going away. So what are you doing about it? And I get a lot of very panicked looks when I say that. Do you?
Yes, yes. And I think it's interesting what you're saying, that what you're doing now is you're looking kind of at processes. And I've found that when I go into organizations, what I talk about is actually changed from what I was talking about even just over a year ago. So that people would want me to go in, they'd want me to show them the tools, here's how to prompt. And yeah, that's still important. There's still a lot of people who need to learn that. But what I tend to be talking about a lot at the moment is about context. So making sure there's sufficient knowledge for the AI tool to draw on. So I'm spending a lot of time working with people in context. And the other thing is remapping processes. And there's like 2 levels to process remapping that I've been looking at. So one that's most comfortable is mapping out exactly what we're already doing, and then going, which parts of that can AI help with? Which parts can it take away the crap, and which parts can it amplify the good stuff? And that's good. That's one way of doing it. But there's a few organizations who are willing to go the step further, which is to go, all right, let's look at that process. Let's ignore everything from start to finish, and to go, right, what's the input and what's the necessary output? And through the lens of AI, how can we reinvent that? And that's when we start getting into an innovation mindset. And that's where the real opportunity is. And I'm finding I'm starting to have more of those conversations. And that's where I think is the exciting stuff. That's when we start to truly unlock value. And I'm hoping to have more of that in the future. Are you finding that your conversations are changing in kind of like similar ways?
They are with smart organizations. Others, I've got to lead them into that because they don't realize. I've worked out in the, 200 engagements I've done in the last 3 years since ChatGPT blasted onto the stage. There are 4 blockers for AI adoption. First of all is training, not just how to do a prompt, but a level set. What can AI do and what can't it do? And also, do you have an AI policy to explain how you use it? Okay, we need that. Second is budgets. People I've found are not putting the money required, not just for the tools, and not for everyone to have the tools, but for the right people to have the tools and the process re-engineering and the time. They're not putting the money aside. Third thing is data. That has been a problem for 20 years. If you don't have the right data, AI can't really do its job. But that problem is now even more important than it was 5 years ago when people went, oh, well, we've got to get our data, solidified. And the fourth is process. So those 4 things are what's stopping. And so if you look at all of those, the first 3 are probably fairly easy, or data less so, to address. The process one is where the rubber hits the road. And I am excited to have those discussions at the top table because that's where it matters. And doing AI isn't just buying Copilot licenses. It's actually making your firm fit for the future.
Yeah. Now, you talk about something called task slicing as a way of kind of like addressing this. Could you explain your approach of task slicing?
Well, I touched on it before that, again, if you audit your job and you look at what you do as those series of tasks, I mentioned there are a whole lot of cards that are stacked up. What are the things that you can actually take off the table? So expense management. Why have you got a highly paid manager looking through expense reports from all of their subordinates to approve it? Could you not have AI build you an exception report? So here are the 2 particular line items you need to look at. I've already pre-looked at them, and this is just one that needs a judgment call, needs a human to say, yeah, they're having a bad day, let's just let that one through. Otherwise, everyone I talk to, I say, do you like doing expense reports? No. As a manager, you like approving them? No. Why don't you automate that? Everyone that says, oh, I'm drowning in email, can you have your tool go through in the morning and find out the things that you should be doing that make the most sense and prioritize that? Now, back in the day, I had a quarter of a personal assistant or executive assistant at IBM called Karen, and she would do some of that for me.
Just one leg there on the desk.
She was very efficient, but she would actually go through my inbox and she would triage it. So I had an AI, I had an amazing intelligence in Karen doing that for me. I don't have Karen anymore. So I'm now doing that myself. So think about that. So when we do task slicing, people say, will I lose my job through AI? No. It's about task reassignment. So it's tasks will change. And again, to what we've just been talking about, when you reimagine the way work gets done, the tasks change because you don't need some of those tasks. I see a day when expense management isn't actually handled by humans. Most of us in our personal life, we can see the expense come up. We know that there are some limits in there that we're kind of managing ourselves because of governance and because of fraud and those sort of things. You've got to have extra analysis on that. There are so many things that can be automated, but I think people are afraid to let go. And certainly I've seen middle management like, well, no, I actually like doing the long form way, Andrew, because it takes me a while to do that. And if AI did it in 5 minutes, what else would I do? Well, I could think of a lot of things I could do.
This is one of the things where, when it comes to how people are going to be affected by AI, it's different for different roles, and it's very difficult for people to say that this role will definitely be impacted, because I think we're finding it's not quite working out the way people were predicting. But I think that people that don't need to use their brains that much in their role are the ones that probably are most at risk, if they are pretty much robotic in what they do. But there's one of the things that we're finding that was in my newsletter today, is this study that 80% of white-collar workers are quietly refusing to use the AI that their employers bought.
Yeah.
So a global survey of 3,750 executives and employees across 14 countries found that 54% of workers bypassed their company's AI tools in the past month and did the work manually. Another 33% haven't used AI at all. So 80% are refusing to use AI in the roles. So we're finding that all of this thing about AI adoption, it is stalling. And it's funny that in the comments, we've got Carrie Sullivan, who's been putting lots of stuff in the comments. And this is something that Carrie was on the show a couple of months ago. And we talked about this fact that 80% of staff are not, this is where it stalls, getting 20% of staff to use AI. That doesn't seem to be too difficult, but that last 80% is where it stalls. How do you think organizations and leadership need to be dealing with that? What do you think they should be doing? And should they be mandating that you have to use AI and measuring people on it? Or is that just like nanny state?
So I read this report as well, and I had to smile. And we've seen this all before. Back in the Industrial Revolution, people would break into factories and they would actually sabotage the equipment so that they had to take longer. In fact, we did this at school. I'm not sure if I've told this story publicly. I went to school in Australia where we used overhead projectors. I'm showing my age now. You'd have a bright light reflected onto the screen. Now, we worked out as kids, it was an all-boys school, so you can imagine how innovatively naughty we were. If you, with the overhead projector turned off, if you opened the top and you put your fingers on the bulb, when the bulb got hot again, because of the greasy fingers, the bulb will explode. And there was never a spare bulb. So guess what? If the bulb exploded, the lesson was cancelled. And so for a series of months, there was basically sabotage where the teachers went to turn on the overhead projector and it exploded and they couldn't do the lesson because they couldn't show things on the screen. Very naughty, I know. Can't believe I've told that story. But that's actually sabotage. We were sabotaging the equipment so we could do it the old way and not have to do it with the overhead projector. So I think what we're seeing is a bit of sabotage. This is because people see AI as a threat. They're not curious enough to actually see how it can enhance their job. Now, you and I can imagine growing up, were probably pretty ambitious. I was the one that was always, please, sir, can I have some more? I want to, and even in my career, I give you this tip. If you ever go to a conference and you get to ask a question, always ask the first question and start it off with who you are and what your name is and where you work. That's a paid ad. And I've actually got business out of doing that. So it's a bit cheeky, but I was ambitious. Okay, I've got the floor. I've literally got the mic. Hi, Andrew Grill. I'm the actionable futurist. And then when you go and meet the speaker afterwards, you can go, I was the one that asked the first question. They remember you. And my father taught me some of those tricks. Thanks, Dad. Thanks, Ron. So where am I getting to with this? If you understood how it could help your job, that actually you could have a more fulfilling job. But then what we need, and this is a long way to answer your question, we need the organization to allow your role to breathe beyond where it is today and the way you get work done, to explore what your role could look like enhanced by AI, and then people will use it. So again, because I'm a futurist, I was the first person in my friends group to have one of these. And when I bought it in 1994, it was a Nokia N1000 analog mobile phone, and it cost me $1,000 as a student in 1994. Everyone went, Andrew, why have you spent so much money on this toy? So I was the first one to have one. And eventually, more and more people got a mobile phone because they could see the utility of being able to be, Andrew seems to get all this work and he's always contactable. I should get one as well. So then you see the power of the utility of the tool. And if you think about it, if you're in the category of a late adopter, you were late to the party getting a mobile phone because I don't need one, and now you've got one. Think of it with AI. You and I are early adopters. A lot of people out there may be working with people that are late adopters. How do we get them along? Because they see the utility of the tool to help them. How do we do that? We make them more digitally curious, that they go, oh, I didn't realize it could do that. Another quick example. So I gave a talk, this is last year. I explained how I analyzed an Excel worksheet into an AI tool and what I got out of it. And the HR lady nearly hugged me. She said, I've just done a pulse survey of the whole organization. I have all these surveys. You mean I can put that into AI and it can give me in seconds an analysis of the pulse of the employee survey? I didn't know it could do that. She will now change how she does employee assessment in terms of writing the questions, all those sort of things. So she has seen utility. She's not threatened by AI. She's embracing it. How do we get everyone to embrace it because they see and have that aha moment?
But there is this, as somebody who's worked in innovation for the last 15 years and gone in and sort of run workshops, that I'd run these workshops that I'm going to make it polite for just now, but there was a mantra in these workshops, which was fudge with shizzle, except it wasn't. It was a lot more sweary than that. And and what it was about taking stuff and trying to use it for what it wasn't designed for. And I'd create this atmosphere. It was all about play and experimentation and discovery. And that's the stuff that's missing in most organizations. The fact that organizations had to pay me to come in to show people how to play, that was the thing that I just found. And it's not, a lot of people think that play stuff, I get a bit eye-rolly when I hear people talking about play in organizations, because I think people misunderstand it. And they think that play is about being a kid. And it's about being childlike, not about being childish. And a lot of people go for childish, and that's the stuff that just makes me cringe. But I think that this is what a lot of people need in organizations, is the permission to play, to experiment, to try stuff out and to fail. Because when you're in a stage of play, there's no such thing as failure. It's all discovery. And that is so sadly missing. And I'm finding in organizations, when it comes to AI, they think that it's business. We have to be serious. That we need to get over that and just get people playing and experimenting. I'd love to do more. The people
have to play with it first. They're the board. I had a session 2 weeks ago to board chairs, and the penny dropped that if we get them on board actually using it, and then you get the management team actually using it, it breaks the barriers down. Then they will let the rest of the organization experiment and play, because they've done that. They've had the aha moments like, we want to, so here's how you do this, and getting excited here. At the end of my presentation, I say, in every organization, every room, you've got two tribes. You've got the going digital, many represented here today, still not happy to play with the tool. And you've got the born digital. They live and breathe this stuff. The two tribes need each other. And so you bring them together with a hackathon. Half a day, bring them together. And then what you see is the going digital go, oh, I didn't know that the born digital used it that way. Here's another use case that we could use to change, and the penny drops. And it just is a very powerful way to bring those two groups together. But what it also shows, if you start at the top, you get the chair, the board, the C-suite using it and embracing it. Then it's a no-brainer to give a few more people licenses. I did a talk the other day to the NHS. They have, as an organization, the base level Microsoft Copilot. If you want the paid version, you have to go and ask someone for funding. Yeah. I said to this beforehand, a guy called Andrew, I said, I know you're the COO. Before I go on stage, I'm going to say this. Are you okay if you get rushed for people wanting license? He said, yes, because they're the keen beans. We want the keen beans to basically ask permission, to be able to do this. But maybe we say, look, we're going to give you the license, but every month, can you just let us know what you're doing and share that with the rest of the organization? So you've then got permission from the top. You've got people self-selecting to say, we'd like to experiment, we'd like to play. They then tell the early and late majority from the keen beans like me and you that it's safe to play with it. That's not going to happen overnight, but my view is start at the top, get them comfortable, and the rest will follow.
Phenomenal. Andrew, we are going to leave it there because I cannot believe it, but we've been doing this for 50 minutes and I always aim for 30. We've totally
I could
run
talk
over.
for hours about this, and I know you could too.
And, you know, out of the 20 plus questions that I'd written down for us, I've asked 2.
Well, I think that shows that we're both curious enough to, and we have a point of view, and I live and breathe this stuff as you do. And every time I'm in front of an audience, I learn so much from them that I then bring to you.
Yeah, that's brilliant. Andrew, thank you so much. We will do this again because this is great. Folks, thank you so much for joining. This is the second most important show for me today. The next most important show, which is coming up shortly, is I'm about to head out with my wife to go and see Hamilton. Have you seen Hamilton yet?
Twice. Andrew? It's brilliant. I walked past the theater last night. Actually, you're gonna love it. You're gonna be singing the songs. You're gonna go again. It's brilliant.
Oh, brilliant. Well, my wife she can't forgive me that it's taken me so long to get tickets.
The phrase you'll remember, because it impacts what we do. You want to be in the room where it happens. Think about that when I sing that tonight.
Yeah. So yeah, I'm excited about that. But I'm going to be back with another show. It could be next week, could be a couple of weeks. I'm not entirely sure. Andrew, thank you so much again for joining us. And everyone in the comments, my goodness, the comments have been on fire. It's been brilliant. There's been about 70 people joining us at any time. And I really appreciate everyone turning up for this. And we shall be back. So I will get everything ready to say goodbye to you. Look after yourself. Go and hug a kitten. Tell someone you love them. And I'll see you.
Stay digitally curious.
Absolutely. And get Andrew's book. Available now on Amazon. Bye.